What up, everybody? This is the Doctor of Football Podcast, Ultimate Patriots Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dennis Tian. Joining me, as always, the CEO of HedgeBetter, Justin Fine. We are recording remotely tonight. I, as always, am in my medical office in Massachusetts, and Justin is at the HedgeBetter studio in Braintree, Mass. Justin, what is going on tonight, my man? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing. The cold weather starting to settle in a little bit today. Starting to feel like fall again, right?
Yeah, it's starting to feel like it should feel in mid-November.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of nice, a little refreshing, but yeah, just another week, more football.
Great Patriots win on Sunday. We have a great roster of topics tonight, a lot to get into. Thought this was a super interesting game on Sunday, Justin.
Very interesting. And I got to say, like, I think we were both kind of thinking it. You specifically called this out. What a great opportunity for the Patriots to come in and steal one against the Bears, who were trending in the wrong direction. That Patriots team, man, they looked dominant. It was crazy. That was not the team that we had seen, the first half of this year. Yeah,
there's no question. There's, I think, baby steps, seeds of progress that are sprouting. But we're going to get into all this later. But let's face it too, it can change really fast from week to week in this league. And I think that this week's game against the Rams, which we will look at the end of the episode, right? But this is a super important game, because if they go out and they lose to the Rams, all the good feelings that they've accumulated this week from beating the Bears, winning 2 out of 3, are going to very quickly evanesce if they get outclassed or beaten pretty bad this week.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, look, that game was, and I don't want to make it sound like the Patriots all of a sudden became good and turned their entire season around. Like, I don't mean that by any means. I just mean, I think we thought the Patriots could go out and win that game. We thought that the Chicago Bears were not playing their best football. I don't think we thought it was going to be as bad of a beatdown as it wound up being.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anyone saw the Patriots defense dominating the way they did.
Right.
I mean, that was a surprise. All right, let's get into it. We got a terrific roster of topics to go through this game. And I'm going to begin, Justin, with the kickoff. That is the opening take to set the table for the rest of the podcast. And I'm going to start with this, Justin. I've been very consistent about this since Drake Maye came in, which is it can't just be that Drake Maye flashes talent or looks pretty. I need to see that Drake Maye is a winner. I need to see this team win games for me to believe that he is truly the guy and that this thing is headed in the right direction. Now, Sunday was one little tiny win in Chicago, but I thought it was a big step forward for both Maye and this franchise. And I think it was an important game, or about as important a game as a 3-7 team could possibly play in.
Right.
Now, Drake Maye didn't throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and at times it didn't always look pretty. But I thought he played an excellent game. I thought he played within himself. It's not always about putting up big numbers. He was playing against one of the best pass defenses in the league. He was on the road playing a desperate team. He doesn't have a lot out there with him. The line stinks. The receivers stink. We've talked ad nauseum about that. He made plays when he had to make plays to win this game. And I think that one of the big differences in this game, Justin, clearly was that Drake Maye is a much better quarterback right now than Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. He handles pressure. He made better. He made more plays. The Patriots played harder. They played smarter. And Drake Maye was a much better quarterback. And that, I think, is why the Patriots won this game so resoundingly on Sunday. You look across this league, Patrick Mahomes is doing what he's doing. He's not throwing for 400 yards a game.
Right.
So sometimes it really comes down to a quarterback playing within themselves and making the key plays when it counts. Maye did that. The Pats did that. I thought it was a big step forward for them to get a big win at a key time in the development of this young player. Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was obviously I think it was a big boost of confidence. You talk about the psychological impact that some of these things that we maybe forget about, or at least don't factor in as much, can have with some of these guys. When a guy gets drafted number 1 overall and he plays the same position as you, and then you're the third guy taken off the board at that position, right? That's something that, I think it impacts some of these young guys when they first come into the league, especially their rookie year. And when you travel to that guy's home team, who's got a better team, he's got a better record, he's got more hype, and you're able to show him up in his own stadium and look like the better quarterback. And I think most of us would say, after what we've seen the last few weeks, that Drake Maye is the better quarterback. You really got to feel good about yourself. You got to feel good about Drake Maye and the direction he's heading. This team, we talk about a lot of the gaps they have as far as talent, but they're still playing really hard, and they're able to go out and, I know the Bears offense is trending in the wrong direction, but that's a Bears team that's got some good players, man. Roma Dunze, like DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, like DJ Moore, like that's a pretty good team. So the defense went out there, they played hard, they did their thing. And like you said, Drake Maye did his thing, and he outshines the number 1 overall pick.
I mean, I think it has symbolic value. All we've heard all offseason is about Caleb Williams for not all offseason, for like 2 years is about Caleb Williams and how he's this generational talent, once in a decade, once in a 20-year type player. So to all of us, and it might be that Caleb Williams really isn't what they say he is,
right,
but I think that there's a lot of value in the fact that Drake Maye did way more with way less than Caleb Williams on Sunday.
Oh, there's no question about it. And I think he looked more poised. He looked the part. He didn't just do more. He looked the part. And I know Caleb Williams is struggling. I know the Bears are going through it. Some problems with that offense right now. And I know Caleb looked okay to start the season, but I think from what I've seen from Drake Maye, I'm glad the chips fell where they did. I'm glad we wound up with Maye because it's looking like he's the better quarterback.
I mean, at this point, is there anyone in the football world that would draft Caleb Williams over Drake Maye or Jaden Daniels right now? I mean, if you're being honest with what you've seen, if you erase your mind from all the hype from the previous 2 seasons, how could you take Williams over either of those guys? Maybe even over Nix. And I know that sounds crazy, but again, Nix has been better through 9 games. And I think that counts for more than anything that happened in college. When I was watching this game Sunday on Justin, and I know you watched Caleb Williams play a lot in college, this game on Sunday reminded me very specifically of the USC Notre Dame game last year, which I think we talked about.
Yeah, when he cried.
That was actually not the one he cried. Or maybe it was. Was it that the one he cried?
We could double check it. I thought it was. I could be wrong.
Maybe it was.
Okay.
But one thing for sure, whether he cried or not, he did not. He got lit up that game.
He did.
He played very poorly.
Yes.
Very poorly. And he did an extremely poor job of handling the pressure that Notre Dame was able to put on him. And I took that as sort of a real red flag on this player. And when I watched him play on Sunday, I thought Caleb Williams did a terrible job of handling pressure. He was sped up. He went backwards. He held the ball too long. I got a news flash for everyone. The New England Patriots did not become the 85 Bears on defense overnight. I'd say about 7 of those 9 sacks, if not all 9 of them, were really on Caleb Williams for just bad quarterback play.
100%. He got rattled, and you could kind of see it, in that second half. It just looked like all the life kind of had left him. It looked like he was just like a corpse out there. He was very kind of like, there was very little emotion. What emotion you did see was negative. There really wasn't any sort of positivity or leadership skills, so to speak of. And this is, Dennis, this is something that we've talked about. This is one of the big concerns we have with Caleb Williams coming into the league, knowing what his history was in college, knowing, what the question marks were around his intangibles in his potential attitude problems and mental game and all that stuff. And look, I think it was another example of that. Like, I think a lot of quarterbacks would have found ways to kind of not necessarily power through that, but exude signs of confidence or positivity, or try to get their team fired up. And it just seemed like the adversity took the life out of him. Yeah,
it did, Justin. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't like this player coming out of college. And I know you didn't either.
Yeah.
We just lived through the Mac Jones experiment where, I'm sorry, I still to this day, and we're going to get to him in the Around the League podcast.
Yeah.
But I still to this day believe that Mac Jones's biggest problem was never physical. It was always psychological.
Agreed.
We watched this guy implode over 3 years from a lot of really crazy adversities he faced. Fine. When I saw the way Caleb Williams handled some of that stuff in college, that gave me pause to say, maybe this guy isn't all they're cracked up to be. And I'll say one other thing too, and you might agree or disagree with this. People talk about this guy like he is the most physically talented and gifted player that has ever graced a football field. I don't see it. He's small. His arm is okay, but I don't think it's like exceptional. Okay, supposedly he throws from all these different angles. I think that's working against him in the pros because the defenses are so fast. He has a lot of bad habits that he is going to have to break. I'm not sure his skill set translates that well to the pro game, even in today's modern game where a lot of smaller, quicker quarterbacks are being successful. I'm still not sure it works well for Williams. I don't think he's the physical talent that everyone says he is.
I agree with that partially. I do think the guy is athletic. I do think he's physically talented. I think he's shown, the ability to kind of make some plays that your average quarterback and even average starting NFL quarterback can't make. I mean, for me, I think it's more so the consistency and the ability to battle through like adversity with him. I just think he's somebody that, when the momentum is there and things are good, like he can ride the wave, right? And he can ride the wave and he can perform and he can make you think that he's a really good player. But I just think, you saw it against Jaden Daniels in the Commanders, right? Is there any coincidence that when he goes up against the number 2 and the number 3 quarterbacks drafted, I think he scored like a combined total of like 10 points, like 13 points, something like that. I mean,
that might not be a coincidence because maybe it did a little bit get in his head and is part of like what is dysfunctional in that offense. You said something about his mobility, and do you think he has the kind of mobility that say like a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels has? Like I look at Williams and I see a guy that's like a mobile enough guy, but not a guy that is gonna like beat you with his legs.
For sure. I actually think Mahomes isn't a bad comp in terms of his mobility because I do think he's mobile. I do think he's got some speed, but he is not like a Lamar Jackson, a Jaden Daniels, a Michael Vick style quarterback. But I do think he's fast and athletic. I mean, but no, he doesn't got that pop like those guys.
Exactly. So I don't get like what makes this guy so special physically. His arm is good. I don't think it's great. He's small. He's above average mobility, nothing special. I don't know, man. I mean, I'll put it to this way, Justin. The football world was dead wrong about Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Dead wrong about Bryce Young. And I don't understand why people have such a hard time wrapping their head around, even now, the possibility that maybe we were all wrong about Caleb Williams too.
Yep, I totally agree. And you know what? Hopefully after this Trevor Lawrence experiment, people will be a little bit quicker to recognize it and call it out when they see it. Again, it's still Caleb Williams' rookie season. Still questions about that OC and Eberflus and all that. And I think he deserves a year or two to kind of get things squared. But I mean, question marks early, definitely warranted.
Did you see they fired the OC?
Oh, I did. It was that today. What was that? Today? Yep.
Gone.
Okay.
Shane Waldron out.
Boom. Okay. There you go.
Yep. He becomes the fall guy. I mean, Williams is going to be a coach killing player where, I'm sorry, he's going to, he's the kind of guy that's going to cost a lot of people their job.
Exactly. And guess what? The new OC is tasked with the duty of protecting Eberflus's job because he's basically got the rest of the season to right the ship, or else I think Eberflus is done at the end of the season. So
I looked it up today and, because I'm like, first of all, I think it was super dysfunctional for them to fire Shane Waldron, the OC today, because he was the guy they chose and brought in back in February when they knew they were drafting Caleb Williams. And as much as I am down on Caleb Williams, let's face it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was looking pretty good after that Jacksonville game in London.
Yeah.
So you go out and you have 3 bad games with a rookie quarterback and you fire the offensive coordinator. What did the Bears expect was going to happen. You have to give Caleb Williams some ups and downs. He is a rookie. Were they expecting to hit the ground running and make the Super Bowl this year? I think it's dysfunctional that they fired the coach. I looked it up today. Their principal owner is a 101-year-old woman, Virginia McCaskey.
Yeah.
Right. And they run their organization like they're being run by someone that is really not very hands-on or involved.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I believe they haven't ever fired a coach mid-season, or they haven't done it recently, something crazy like that. So I think Eberflus basically is playing for his, or coaching for his job now. And I wonder what that type of mounting pressure does to somebody like Caleb Williams, who's struggling right now and dealing with his own level of pressure.
I mean, I think there's a lot of parallel here with Trevor Lawrence. I'm just, calling it. I mean, I know Urban Meyer was a jackass, but like he took him down in 1 year because it was such a disaster. And then they brought in the next guy. I mean, it just sounds a lot like that. And when the reality, the problem at the end of the day, it's just maybe the player isn't that good.
Exactly.
All right, Justin, let's talk a little bit about the coaching for the Patriots, because I feel like that's a topic we want to hit on this week. Now, I will say two things about the Patriots coaching situation based on what we've seen the last few weeks. One, for better or worse, okay, Gerard Mayo is almost certainly going to be here in 2025 as the head coach. I unless something just epically crazy, unexpected, disastrous happens, an Ime Udoka like situation or something weird like that. Not to say that Mayo would ever be involved in that, but it's going to take something. It's not going to happen. Mayo is going to be here, and he is not a total disaster as a head coach. I am still very concerned that he can be a winning coach, a playoff coach, a Super Bowl coach. There is a long way to go in that area, but he's not a total disaster. He's kept the locker room, and he's showing signs of progress.
He is. And I mean, I think almost, above all else is his team is continuing to play hard, and show up each week and compete. Right. And I think that's kind of the biggest sign that we look for, as the team giving up on itself or on the coach. And I don't think anybody is given up in that organization yet. So, and if anything, again, they look like they're trending in the right direction. So I would say that he's definitely earned himself. I mean, barring anything disastrous, I think it's almost for certain to say he'll be back. The question is, are the coordinators back, right? I think it'd be tough to, I don't know. I mean, do you see Covington going anywhere? Do you see Van Pelt going anywhere? I mean, at this point, though, it's almost like, it's funny because we've been saying that even though Drake Maye looks good, I think we can all agree that Van Pelt isn't the guy. But is this like late season success and upswing going to ensure that Alex Van Pelt is here next year?
Well, I'm gonna split it in two different ways. Okay, I am still not convinced Alex Van Pelt is the guy in terms of like on being an offensive coordinator in game situations.
Yeah.
However, you have to give him some credit for the way Drake Maye has developed, and I think that outside of the play calling and the design of the play piece, right? Whoever is in there working with Drake Maye, whether it's Ben McAdoo, Alex Van Pelt, the quarterback coach, name escapes me right now, they've done a really good job of getting this young player up to a point where they can put him on the field and he can be a functional quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to give AVP some credit for that.
Yeah. All right. And so look, so that's the thing. I mean, I think we're pretty much solidifying, unless something goes crazy in, this back half of the year, that we see all three of these guys back next year.
Yes. And Covington too, Justin. Like I felt, and I'm not just saying this because they won and you might disagree with me.
Yeah.
I felt like this was the first time that I saw them like doing innovative things on both sides of the ball. On offense, they did some stuff that I haven't seen from them. And it looked more like the stuff you're seeing a lot of the successful teams. Like watch the Chiefs play and the Lions play, and they do innovative things. And the Patriots just haven't done it. I thought they finally did a little bit of that on Sunday, which I loved.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely, and you know what? Part of that is like ability, right? Like players with certain abilities give you the ability to kind of get a little more creative. And I think Drake Maye is giving them an opportunity, at least on the offensive side of the ball, to get a little bit more creative than you could get with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, and maybe they're settling down a bit, and
Yeah.
and they're able to do more things beyond just the bare bones basics that we've seen to this point
Yep.
in the season. The other thing is, and we talked about Caleb Williams, the 9 sacks and a lot of those being on him, but I think Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington deserve a lot of credit because they saw that and they exploited it with the way they designed the defense. And for the first time this year, I felt like their defensive coaching was very strategic and targeted, and schematically just like tailored to the weaknesses of the opponent.
Yeah. Yeah. They really, I mean, it was funny. I mean, especially in the second half of that game, it almost seemed like they were unstoppable. And, you look at that team, and that is not a defense that has looked unstoppable at any point this year. So
absolutely,
they figured it out. They definitely I think it was a combination of, a couple of things, but you can't deny that they brought a good game plan to the table.
Agreed. And I will say this, like, for the first time this year, I felt like the Patriots kind of won the chess match, if you will,
yeah.
with the team, especially on defense. I felt like for the first time this year, they won the chess match.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then one other thing I think we want to talk about, Justin, is the some of the downside from the game on Sunday. If you're looking for any kind of down things that happen, and can I throw one thing at you, which I thought was really weird?
Yeah.
And see what you think about. And that is the wide receiver room. I still think really is struggling. It was nice to see Pop Douglas make a few plays, but Kendrick Bourne was inactive. Jalen Polk, caught a touchdown. That was his only catch of the day. Just felt like they really had a problem getting these wide receivers open on Sunday.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like I still feel like when you run such a wide rotation, you make it difficult for any one or two guys to get into a real groove and like assert themselves. And I wonder if you're running into that problem. I know that none of these guys are like prototypical go-to guys or like wide receiver ones, but I just wonder if the fact that they're running so deep. I mean, I know Thornton's injured, but I mean, I don't know. They're running a good mix of guys in there. I wonder if they need to just maybe pick a couple of them and see if they can get more out of them by just giving them a little bit more consistency.
Did Thornton even sniff the field on Sunday? I don't think we saw that.
I don't think so. No, I think I saw that he was injured. I don't know if he got injured in the game or if he was injured going into it, but
do you think that one receiver on this roster will be on this team next year? Probably Pop Douglas, right?
I think Douglas and I think Booty will both be here. I think Keyshawn Booty. I think Douglas and let's see. Yeah, I think those two.
Kendrick Bourne, he'll be gone.
Yeah.
Thornton, you're not going back. We're not going back to Thornton.
Thornton will be gone.
Jalen Polk, will he be here?
Yeah, Polk will be here.
Second round pick.
Yeah.
Probably. So even though I don't expect much from him.
Yeah, Polk. I mean, and then Baker, he's been super quiet. I mean, I think we were both pretty excited about him at the beginning of the year, but he's kind of fizzled out. We haven't seen him too much.
Yeah, he literally has not seen the field the entire season.
Yeah, and I was expecting a little bit more out of him, but yeah, they got a couple of young guys, first and second year guys. I think will probably be back, but yeah, Thornton gone, Bourne gone. I mean, KJ Osborne, I think, is on like a 1 or 2 year deal. I don't know if they'll pick up that option for the second.
Yeah, he'll probably be gone. He doesn't sound very happy here.
No.
I just think not enough is being said about how bad a pick Jalen Polk has been to this point. I mean, let's not forget, we said all off season, the Patriots basically have 2 first round picks.
Yeah.
And then the way they just mangled that situation, wanting to trade up, being unable to, not staying put, trading down, and getting stuck with Polk, and then him being just a total dud. That is such an epic bad start to Elliott Wolf's tenure as GM.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we talked about some of those guys that wound up going after that trade down, and I think they would be much better fits here in New England so far, especially like Lab McConkey, someone who comes to mind. So yeah, it's super disappointing. I really wish they did better with that. And you know what? Like again, it tells me like when you made a move like that, they didn't really get much in return. It tells me that they had their eyes on this guy. They wanted this guy. So I don't really know what it is that they saw, but whatever it is that they saw, I'm not seeing it.
You could argue that this was like the first really meaningful pick of Elliott Wolf's tenure as GM because, I mean, let's be honest. I think most people would have taken Drake Maye at number 3.
Right.
You know, maybe you can give him a little bit of credit for not trading back. I mean, Belichick probably would have traded back. We know we probably have JJ McCarthy
exactly.
in another first round pick if Belichick was still here. So I guess you can give Wolf some credit for that. But when it really, I think it was pretty obvious that most people, most GMs were going to take Drake Maye with that 3rd pick. So, you know, you come up, this is really his first major important pick. And you look at this wide receiver room and how much they've struggled all season, Justin. And just to blow that pick is just such an epic whiff.
It is. And you know what? Again, it's still the rookie year. There's still time left. Really hoping we can see some improvement. I think he caught a touchdown this week, didn't he?
He caught a touchdown. It was his only catch.
He did. It was his only catch.
One catch for 2 yards.
I'd like to see them maybe even try to force the issue with him down the stretch here and see if you can get him going, see if you can get some flashes of something, you know, so that we got a better idea of what's going to happen next year. But I'm still hoping. I'm still keeping hope out, but it doesn't look great.
Agree with that. And I'd say the same thing about Javon Baker. Because when he got it in the preseason, he dropped the ball, but he got open.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some playmaking there. They really don't have any explosiveness from that position at all. So.
Right.
All right, let's talk a little bit about a couple things, Justin. Number one is the Patriots have won 2 out of their last 3 games.
Yeah.
And it's actually a huge shame that they couldn't have just won one more game. Like you look at Seattle, Miami, Tennessee. If they had taken one of those 3 games, right, they would be 4-6. They would actually have a path to the playoffs.
I know.
Clearly, one game out of the position. Do you think, is there any chance we should be talking, even still, about a playoff path with this team at 3-7? They're only 2 games out of that last wild card spot right now.
Really? 5-7 is in that, or sorry, what was
3-7?
Yeah, 3-7. So 5-5 is in that last wild card spot.
Right 5-5 is Denver in that last wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously it's the chances aren't good, but like, look, if they 9-8 could maybe wind up getting you in.
8-9 could potentially get you in this year
in
the AFC. It's that weak of a conference.
Yeah. I mean, look, you take it one game at a time, but the way Drake Maye's playing, the way this team looked last week, I mean, there's no reason to think that they can't compete in their upcoming games. I mean, is it likely? Definitely not. But I think this team can compete moving forward.
Well, let me just throw a few thoughts at you about this. So think about this. Denver holds that last spot at 5-5.
Yeah.
Ahead of the Patriots right now, they're the 11th seed in the AFC. You have the New York Jets, who they've beaten and are in a tailspin. The Miami Dolphins, who they almost beat and will play again in 2 weeks. The Cincinnati Bengals, who they beat. And the Indianapolis Colts, who they play in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not – I'm not saying it's likely, but it's really not totally crazy off the reservation to think that if they could string together a few wins here, maybe we could have a serious conversation some point in December and say this season isn't totally dead yet.
If you can rattle off a couple wins here, get yourself to 4-7, 5-7. I mean, you can start having that conversation. Definitely. You know,
if they somehow could beat the Rams in Miami, which I know is a tall order, and they probably will lose both those games and make me eat these words. But that Indianapolis game on December 1st in Gillette Stadium suddenly could become a pretty relevant game.
It could. And look, I mean, the Rams in Miami, they're no prize package either. I mean, we just watched them both. Yeah, we just watched them both play the other night. I mean, neither of them super impressive at this point in time. I do think I'm actually a little bit more I'm a little bit more scared of the Rams than I am the Dolphins this time around. I got to be honest.
Oh yeah, you're more scared of the Rams?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more scared of the Rams. I actually think we're going to beat the Dolphins.
I don't know. The Dolphins are starting to look a lot better with Tua in there. I feel like it was starting to click a little last night.
They are starting to click a little bit, but I don't know. I just feel like I feel like that's what's going to happen. I feel like they're going to start to click a little bit and then drop an easy game that they must win, like against the Patriots. That's
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's probably true. All right, we've looked up. Let's look down.
Okay.
Okay, because we're probably closer to down than up.
Yeah.
So if the season ended today, the Patriots would be the number 6 pick in the draft, which is very, I think, respectable. Let me just read. I think you can now definitively say, okay, that the Patriots are not the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Which is progress after this last 3 or 4 weeks. I think you can say that there is a lot of teams in this league that are worse off than the Patriots are right now if your season ended today. And I'm going to throw a few of them at you. I want to see.
Yeah.
Tell me, who would you rather be, the Patriots or these teams?
Okay.
All right. These are my teams that I definitely think are worse off than the Pats. Okay. The Jaguars.
Yep.
The Giants.
Yep.
The Titans.
Yep.
Even though they just beat us. The Raiders.
Yep.
The Saints.
Yep.
The Jets.
Yeah.
The Panthers.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe Cleveland.
I'd agree with Cleveland.
Maybe the Dallas Cowboys. And I know that sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't.
They're 3-7 too.
It's not crazy.
The Cowboys are 3-6. So they have the same wins as the Patriots. Yeah. The Dallas Cowboys have $135 million in cap room committed to CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott next year. They're a mess. And then potentially the Miami Dolphins, because if Tua is on the field, no, but if Tua takes one more hit, then they are back to square one.
Yeah, well, I think the common denominator in all those teams you just mentioned is that I'll take Drake Maye over all of their starting quarterbacks.
Yes, 100%. And can I throw one more at you too that I think you could potentially put on there, and it's a little too early to say that?
Yeah.
The Colts. Because if Anthony Richardson turns out to be a bust, they're back to square one.
Look, we've the whole idea of, like we've talked about teams being a quarterback away from being able to contend, like it really speaks to the fact that you can have a good team from top to bottom. You can have good players on paper, but if you don't have that quarterback position solved, you really don't have much, and you can really only do so much. And for us to be able to say that we are in a better position at quarterback than almost half the teams in the league, that speaks volumes. And that was a big unknown. It was a big question mark coming into this year. And it was one of the reasons why, coupled with everything else that we need to fix and improve and build on, that we were like, wow, are we the bottom of the barrel of the league? But knowing now what we know about Drake Maye, I totally agree that we're in a better shape than a lot of those teams. And I'd way rather be us with Drake Maye at this point.
I agree with that. And I'm not 100% convinced that Maye is the guy yet either. As much as I talk him up and I think he's terrific, he still has a long way to go before you're going to be able to say, yeah, he's a franchise quarterback. But I will say this, he has a high ceiling, and he has a real shot to be one. And for all these teams that we just listed, right, all like 13 or 12 or whatever it was, 11 of them, they're all going to have to get into the draft and buy the lottery ticket and see if they can pull the winning ticket. And the statistics, the history of this league shows that probably more than half of these quarterbacks drafted in the first round not only don't end up being good or great quarterbacks, they actually outright suck. They are Bryce Young. They are Jamarcus Russell. They are Blake Bortles. They are Brock Osweiler. They don't even really belong on the field. Zach Wilson, right? Mac Jones. So the fact that we can say pretty confidently Maye is at least not that puts us by definition, I think, ahead of all those franchises.
I agree. And the one thing, to your point of, when you just said, I know it might sound crazy, but I'm not completely sold on Drake Maye being the guy. I agree with you, because here's what we've yet to see from Drake Maye. And here's where it kind of started to go wrong for Mac Jones, right? And this is big. can you win games when you're not supposed to win games? Okay, Mac Jones came out his rookie year. We won some games we didn't think we were going to win. We competed, right? Once you start having the expectation of winning games, are you able to go out and win and perform? And that's what we haven't had for Drake Maye yet. Drake Maye is still playing with the luxury of pretty much being an underdog in almost every game he plays, right? They're afforded the ability of not really having much pressure. I want to see Drake Maye when the Patriots are expected to win, when he's expected to perform.
And that's why I was so encouraged about Sunday, because I mean, the Patriots were on the road and the less good team on paper,
right,
by far, and they were able to win that game partially, at least, because of the way Drake Maye played.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, you could go through Mac Jones's entire 3 years here. Did the Patriots ever beat a team that they weren't supposed to beat? Maybe Buffalo last year is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, in those 3 years, they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. They were a much better team in 21 and 22 than they were in 23 and this year, right? So Mac Jones had that going for him. They were the better team. They were able to beat up on the Zach Wilson Jets and the Steelers with Mitch Trubisky, and, go down the list. The Colts with that, remember they had that backup quarterback when the Patriots played them, and, they get 8 or 9 wins, but they never beat anyone that they weren't supposed to beat.
That's
and
true.
We've already seen now Drake Maye do that once.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, totally agree with that. Big difference.
Awesome. All right, let's any other thoughts about the Pats, Justin? We're gonna move on to the non-football topic of the week. You ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I finished watching The Penguin last night. Did you watch The Penguin?
I have not watched The Penguin, no.
I don't know if I'd recommend it, and we'll talk about that. But before I get to mine, the non-football topic of the week is going to be, what is the last television series that you watched, and what would you recommend that someone watch on television right now that you've seen recently?
The last television series that I watched. All right. Are we talking about a season of a show that I watched, or like in an entire series front to
Whatever.
back?
There's no rules here. This is a free-for-all.
All right. So, you know what? If you haven't, I would recommend watching White Lotus on HBO. That was pretty good.
I've heard of that. What is that about?
It's kind of like a dark comedy. It's actually pretty funny, but it's kind of like a mystery. It's basically surrounds like murders that happen at this White Lotus resort. There's a couple of them. It's like a high-end establishment. There's a couple of them around the world, but yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty well written.
How many episodes?
I usually get like 10 episodes a season, about like an hour.
How many seasons? How much am I signing up for here?
You're signing up currently, I believe there's 2 seasons, a third in the works.
So it's like a 20 episode commitment.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
All right, that's reasonable. I tried to get into Yellowstone. Everyone loves Yellowstone.
No.
And like I lasted like 2 episodes and I just like couldn't, maybe 3. Like I just couldn't. It was like too, I hate when a show tries too hard to be like violent and gory, because I just find it like insulting a little bit, like to my intelligence, to be honest with you. Like I just feel like a little bit of that is fine, but when they're like going out of their way to be like just like so like, oh, like Game of Thrones got like this too. I don't know. Were you a Game of Thrones guy?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. And I just feel like Game of Thrones tried too hard to be dark and gory at times. And I think at some point it just kind of detracted from the actual story. And that's how I just couldn't, Yellowstone, it just couldn't roll me in. I felt like it was too much trying to be like violent.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, my problem with Yellowstone was, the more.
How many episodes did you watch?
I think I quit on it in like season 3.
Wow. So you made it pretty far.
So I made it to season 3. I'll tell you, the reason why I quit on it was because it was Sons of Anarchy with cowboys. It was the same. It was the same plot, the same storylines, like the same sequence of events, like same character developments, all that stuff. But it was just, it just got to a point where it just started becoming too non-believable, right? Like I like a certain element of like realism in my series so that I can justify their continuance in their entertainment. Like Yellowstone, I just found myself too many times in those first 2.5 seasons going from like, Like, oh, how are they miraculously going to get out of this situation now? You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of like getting a little too corny.
A little bit. It depends on the show, I feel like, too.
Yeah.
Because if it's like a fantasy or comic book show, then I think you have that expectation that crazy,
for sure,
realistic things are going to happen.
Right.
But when it's like a show that's supposed to be like true, reflective of like the real world, like Yellowstone, and then crazy things keep happening, I could see that people finding that unbelievable.
Exactly. And that same type of stuff happened in Sons of Anarchy. So that's my take on that.
So the Penguin is pretty good. It's only 8 episodes long, and it's the origin story to the Penguin. And it almost has this like Sopranos type vibe to it where like it, first of all, let me just say, spoiler alert, but I think most people know this because it was commonly known before the show. It has nothing to do with Batman. You never see Batman. He's not mentioned. It is completely focused on how the Penguin became the Penguin. And it's really like a mafia crime series set in Gotham and in the DC comic universe. And the first few episodes, you know, the Penguin, I think they call him Oz Cobb. Okay. He had this like Tony Soprano kind of, am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy kind of thing going? Yeah. And it kind of made the show have its moments where it was like dark, but then also warm and endearing. And by the end of the show, that good side of it was just completely gone. And it was just like straight, like dark, morbid, violent, and vulgar. And I don't know, it just got a little bit too much, I felt like. I don't know. I honestly can't say if I would recommend someone to watch it.
That's interesting because I feel like a few weeks ago you did recommend that I watched it. So things changed at the end of the season.
Things changed. Yeah. It went off the rails. It got too gory. And tried a little too hard to be dark and brooding. And like one of the subplots is his mother, and his mother has dementia. That's really right from the first episode, so it's not a spoiler alert. And just like they really like ham it up, like how like frail and pathetic, and you know how much like how like dark her illness is. And it's just like, okay, enough is enough. Like I don't really need to see this. I mean, I want to see like, you know, I don't know. So it was just a little much.
Yeah, I get that, son. They try to force it a little bit. They try to be too over the top, a little too dramatic.
Yeah, that is exactly what they try to do. So I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a season 2. I'm not going to lie. Even though I hated it. I mean, I said I hated Game of Thrones for 6 years, and I watched it every friggin' week. Right. So like somehow these shows have a way of roping you in. This is my same complaint about Game of Thrones, by the way.
Yeah. Well, look, Game of Thrones. I can't speak to it from the same perspective because I know a lot of people, like the true Game of Thrones fans, like they started it early on and then they put up with like that 10-year stretch or whatever it was, you know, while it was being released. I think even longer than that. I was, you know, privileged from the standpoint that I got into Game of Thrones right before the finale or final season came out. So I like binge watched like 7 or 8 seasons.
You're so lucky.
Leading up to it.
So lucky. Exactly. I started in 2012 in season 1.
Right. Yes.
And I got roped along for like a decade. And if I might say, and this would be another great topic that we could discuss at a future non-football topic of the week, the worst frigging ending of any show ever. The absolute worst ending of any show ever.
Awful. They could have, if they could have kept that group of that casting group together, that realistically should have and could have gone on another 3 or 4 seasons to wrap that thing up. I mean, you spent 7-8 seasons talking about winter is coming, the White Walkers, and then you'd wrap it all up in about 4 episodes at the end of the season. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Absolutely. And Brant the Broken. That's who's going to, we got all these badass chicks and badass dudes and armies and militaries and Jon Snow. The whole damn 6 years is really Jon Snow's story arc and coming back from the wall. Yeah. And it's Brant the Broken. Oh my God. It was brutal. Just a absolutely brutal ending to that show. So that's another topic for another day. And I will say too, the sequel to Game of Thrones, completely unwatchable. What's it called?
House of Dragon. I've heard that.
Completely unwatchable. Yeah. Terrible. Yeah. Did you watch it?
No, but I get friends who watched it. They said it wasn't as good. And honestly, for me, after Game of Thrones, I couldn't get into another series like that. It was just It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
You had enough. You had your fill.
I had enough. Exactly.
All right, fair enough. All right, Justin, before we wrap up this episode of the Ultimate Patriots Dr. Football Podcast, let's talk a little bit about this game against the Rams on Sunday in Gillette. Again, think this is a huge litmus test for this team. If they go out and win this game somehow, and you can say that they've won 3 out of 4 games, I really feel like that's going to be a huge resounding statement that tells us this franchise is headed in the right direction.
It is. It would be a massive indication, a massive step. I think a lot of people are wondering right now, like if what we're seeing from them is kind of like a fluke or just a flash in the pan, because consistency is everything. And so I'm really hoping they can come out this week and take another big step. If they do, then again, you're talking about that meaningful football conversation. Each week that you get another, you keep scraping these wins together, that conversation becomes more and more practical.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I am concerned about this game, and just watching the way the Rams play. Kieran Williams, really good running back. Blake Corum, rookie, I think also a good running back. Sean McVay is a smart coach. He's not going to be stupid enough to do what the Chicago Bears did last week, which is try to throw the ball all up and down the field. This Patriots run defense still has a ton to prove. They've tightened it up the last few weeks, but it's far from where it needs to be. The Rams are going to come out and run the ball. I mean, I'm sitting watching the game on Sunday, and I'm like, why the heck are the Bears not running the ball like 80% of the time and making the Patriots prove they can stop it? I guarantee you Sean McVay will not make that mistake.
I agree. Sean McVay, too smart for that. I think Kyron should have a big day. And I'm sure he will. I think, as much as I would like to say the Patriots win this game, I got to give it to the Rams. I think Stafford, I think McVay, I think that team is too good. Do I think the Patriots can compete? Yes. Do I think they could win? Yes. Do I think they will win? No.
What do you think about the spread? 5.5. Pat's getting 5.5.
I mean, to be honest, I think the Rams have the potential to beat them by 2 scores, 3 scores. You know what I mean? It
does feel like the number is a little low.
I thought. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think the Rams could realistically win this game by 10 to 15 points easy.
Yeah. Well, if you can't stop the run, if the Patriots can't stop the run, then the Rams will win this game going away. No question about it.
I think so, because Stafford's too good. If his running game is that effective, you're not going to be able to slow him down. They're going to put up points.
Well, it might just be the shameless fanboy in me, Justin, but I just got a feeling they're going to win again this week. And that
I hope they do. I do.
It doesn't make sense because I know the Rams are going to run the ball down their throat. But I feel like, and maybe I'm just being a shameless fanboy, probably. I just feel like somehow Maye is going to figure this out, and the defense will play tough and hard like they've been the last few weeks, and they're at home, and I feel like somehow they're going to pull it up, but we shall see.
Is there a chance Barmo's back? What's any updates with him?
That's a great question. I don't think there's any chance he could play this week.
Okay. All right. Because I would say that
would be huge.
That would be huge. That would help explain the spread a little bit. But yeah. So, I mean, changes.
If there was ever a game that they would need Christian Barmore for, I mean, if you look at their upcoming schedule, this is it.
Yeah. I agree. Totally agree. And if you had him, I think it becomes a much different game, because if you can stop the run, I think he can compete. If
they had Christian Barmore, I would actually probably go so far as to say I'd bet the Patriots with those 5.5 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the smarter things I've done just in the last few years, I've stopped betting on the Patriots. Like, it worked for 20 years.
Yep.
It stopped working the last few years. I stay away now.
Yeah, we had a good run. They were almost a guaranteed interest rate for a while, but yeah, we can't do that anymore.
No, you can't. No, you can't. All right. Anything else you want to add about the Pats before we wrap it up? Move on to the Around the League podcast.
No. Looking forward to the face off against LA. I think it'll be a good test for them.
Should be a great one this weekend. Want to thank everyone that listened to this episode of the Ultimate Patriots Dr. Football Podcast. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the game. Enjoy what it feels like to actually win a game, because those have been few and far between the last few years. And let's hope they keep it up. We'll catch you all next week. Have a great week, everybody.